Hey guys, welcome. Zach Turowski here. Welcome to the new agent call. I'm going to go through something I think is really important today. Um, it's not going to take too much time because I think it's relatively simple if done correctly, and it'll actually help you be more organized and sort of shorten your appointments, keep you on track, I guess, and make sure that you're not going down any unnecessary rabbit holes with clients. So, what we're going to talk about today is the financial inventory sheet. Okay, so it'll look just like this. Um, you can find it. It's posted everywhere, but my best advice would be if you don't have one, just ask your manager or whoever the person was that hired you where to find one, because you'll definitely need it for your in-home presentations or your in-home meetings with clients. So what I want to go over today is I use the same financial inventory sheet. Now everyone does it a little bit differently, but I personally use the same exact financial inventory sheet for all of my appointments, whether they're mortgage protection, whether it's final expense. It doesn't, whether it's a life lead off the CRM, it doesn't really matter to me because I'd like to keep the structure exactly the same to my appointments. And I think something that new or old agents, sometimes if you've been doing it for a while, you say, I don't really need that. But I think it's important for everyone to use it because it keeps you on track. It keeps the appointment structured, and there's something professional about having, a sheet that's already laid out, has Family First Life on it, has all these places to fill in information. It kind of gives you free reign to ask questions. Where if you just start, um, writing on the back of the lead, it's not super professional in my opinion. So, anyways, I'm going to go through how to kind of use the financial inventory sheet in a mortgage or a final expense appointment. Um, what the purpose of it is, and hopefully you guys will be able to take this and use it in your appointments, starting tomorrow. So, again, every single appointment, definitely have them with you. It doesn't matter the type of appointment. The one I use is laid out for mortgage protection, but I like that because it forces me to ask people questions about their mortgage, if they have one or not, even if it's a final expense appointment or what other debt they have. So, to kind of get started, and what I would recommend too when you're watching this is if you have one, pull it out and we can kind of go through it together. But you'll see at the very top, it'll say client name, age, spouse name, age, right? So if it's client and spouse, you got to fill in that information, fill in their age, and just to be clear, you're the one filling this in, and you're asking them the questions. And the point of the way that this sheet is laid out is so that um, to eliminate objections up front throughout the entire appointment, so that by the time you get to the end, it should be relatively smooth, and you shouldn't um, have too many objections come up. So the first part, client name, client age, spouse name, spouse age, pretty simple. Okay. The next part is a monthly income and income sources. So, if they're retired, you'll put in how much they make per month in there. Um, if they're working still, you'll put in again how much they make per month there, and then where it comes from. I always love to ask like what they do for work because it gives people something they can connect with you on, or you can connect with them on, depending on their job or whatever. It's just a good kind of little icebreaker, see what they do, and you kind of dive into that for a little bit. But again, it's very important to know their monthly income and their spouse's monthly income if they have a spouse, right? So if Bob makes $4,000 a month, Mary makes $2,000 a month, you find out that Bob's income is all from Social Security and a pension, then I would ask a follow-up question like, okay, Bob, if something happens to you tomorrow, um, does Mary get to maintain any of your Social Security? I mean, any of your pension? And a lot of times it'll either be no, they don't get any of it, or they get 50, 60% of it, right? So that's important because then when you ask Mary what your monthly income is, hers is 1,200, right? You could say, okay, so you'll get, Bob's 1,500 because it's the higher of the two Social Securities, but you're going to lose yours. So your monthly income is going to go from, $6,000 a month or whatever the case would be down to $1,500 a month. So I'm assuming y'all, and this would be for a final expense appointment, right? So I'm assuming you guys would need some income and protection for if something happens to Bob on top of just the final expense coverage, right? So it just allows you to see where income's coming from, how much will be lost if one person passes away. Again, likewise, like with a mortgage, right? If Bob is working full time and he makes $4,000 a month and Mary doesn't work and she takes care of the kids at home, it's very plain to see, hey, if Bob dies, I assume, that you guys can't stay in this house or anything like that because your income would go from $4,000 a month to 0 a month. So I spend a lot of time there getting detailed answers on how much income they have. If one person passes away, how much the other one would lose. and it'll make it so it's very easy to see what the situation looks like if either person dies. I think you should spend 5 to 10 minutes on that part of the financial inventory sheet, um, because it's very important, and that's where the money is made, is where you figure out their why, you figure out what it'll look like, you help them paint a picture, because no one ever sits down with their spouse and goes, all right, if you die tomorrow, honey, how much money am I going to lose, right? That's just not a conversation people have. So it's our job to go in there, have the conversation, spend a lot of detailed time there. And I could run through a million scenarios. I won't, but just know it's important to, this is the analogy John Wetmore uses a lot, right? If this was a movie, right? And in the movie, one person passed away, what does life look like for the next 30, 60, 90 days after that? That's what you need the client to explain to you during that part. And vice versa, if something happens to the wife, what does the next 30, 60, 90 days look like? Even if they're not working, how much is childcare going to cost? Can you swing that right now? I mean, do you have money to spend on that? Okay, if not, do we need to get some coverage on your wife, right? So these are all questions you can build a lot of value and find a ton of premium in this spot, just by doing a detailed, Q&A kind of about exactly where their income comes from, how much, and what it would look like without it. The next part for mortgage information, if it's a mortgage protection appointment, is pretty straightforward. You just figure out how much their mortgage balance is, how many years, mortgage payment, value, equity, etc. For those who don't know what equity is, it's just how much the house is valued at, compared to how much the mortgage amount is. So if they have a $250,000 house and it's worth, or mortgage, and it's worth $300,000, they have $50,000 in equity, right? So it's important to figure that out, especially for older mortgage protection clients, because that'll allow you to go into, and I won't do a full in-home on this, but it'll allow you to go into, okay, Bob, you guys have $100,000 or $50,000 of equity in the house. I assume if you die, that you want to make sure that Mary has time to sell the house, or your kids have time to sell the house, or whatever the case is. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the old person or senior mortgage protection in home. Look it up on either on the Southeast page, on the Agent Force YouTube page, or on the Next Level website. There's tons and tons and tons of good training on it, and it's taking me about 30 minutes to go through in detail how to set that up. So look at it, check it out. I think it'll be really helpful for everyone to at least know how to do that. But also for this part, if it's a final expense and they don't have a mortgage, I'll also ask them, like if they're renting a house, let's say, or the house is paid off, I'll ask them, okay, do you guys have any other major debts, credit cards, student loans, cars, anything like that you want to make sure is paid off when you pass away? Again, it's just another place where you can figure out what all they have going on and what is going to get left to their kids or to their spouse or the beneficiary, and if you need to have anything in place to help that be paid off. And I think people sometimes in final expense skip over that part, and they don't ask if someone has a mortgage. They don't ask if someone has other debt, and it's important to do that always. The next part on there is medical information. So here, what I like to do is just spend, so a bad question when you're going through medical information is are you healthy, right? Because everyone will tell you, yep, I'm in good health right now. A good question is, okay, what prescription medications do you take? Can you grab me a list of them? Everything you've taken for the last 10 years. And then you can go through their medications. If you're a brand new agent, don't call your manager upline or whoever's helping you out when you're in the home and sit there and try to pronounce a bunch of medicines that you don't know that you don't know what they are, or they have no idea what they do. So what you need to do is get all their medicines, Google them, figure out what they're for, ask the client what they're for, have them written down. Then you can call in home and ask someone if you need help with underwriting. Hey, they take this medicine for this one for this, this one for this, this one for this. What can I write? Okay, so make sure you have all that done. I also always make sure to ask people any breathing stuff, any COPD, any asthma, inhalers, anything like that. Because that's something people is not a prescription, or it is, but people don't think of it as a prescription because they don't, take it orally. So I always make sure to ask them that. And then I ask them from there, any diabetes, COPD, heart attacks, strokes, cancers, anything major like that. And I just want to know, I tell them, hey, the reason I'm asking this is because, like I said in the intro, I work with a whole bunch of different insurance companies. So I'm going to sort of shop around based on your health and figure out what company will be able to approve you. I can't sneak you through, otherwise I would, but I just need to know, based on everything you have going on, which direction we can go for you. So I, again, do a very thorough job there. If they start trying to just name medicines, you'd be like, hey, can you just go grab me a list or just a box you keep your medicines in, and have them go get the medications for you. The next part of this that I think is important is that, and that people skip this over sometimes, or they just take the client's word for it, is the next section on here is client life insurance. I think this is probably one of the most important parts of the appointment, because a lot of people have insurance already, and a lot of times we can put people in a better position than the insurance that they have already. So whenever I get to that section, I'm like, okay, got it. Do you guys have any life insurance outside of work? And I always ask outside of work because I want to know if they have something that they actually own, right? Um, so let's say they say, nope, nothing outside of work. I'm like, okay, got it. Do you know why I asked outside of work? And they'll say, sometimes they'll know, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll say, yeah, because my work insurance, doesn't really go with me if anything happens to me. And then we kind of dig in more there and like, yeah, and if the company, goes under, or like during coronavirus, everyone that got laid off, they didn't have their insurance anymore. So if anything like that happens, the company owns insurance. If they decide they don't want to cover insurance for you anymore, they don't have to. So I try to make sure I kill off the work insurance. If they say, okay, I don't have any, all I have is I have life insurance outside of work, let's say. Like, okay, cool. Do me a favor, Bob. Can you grab that policy real quick? I just ask very confidently, and a lot of people will do it. I would say 60% will do it if you just ask confidently and don't make a big deal of it. If they say, oh, I don't know where it's at, so, okay, got it. Well, your kids are going to need to know where that's at if something happens to you. So let's go find your policy, review it, and just make sure you're in a good position there with everything. I don't ask people, what do you think you have? I don't ask people any of those questions. I just make them go get their policy for me so we can take a look at it. And if they're in a great spot, I'll congratulate them and leave them there. If they're not, then we can look at replacing it or finding something better for them. But always, always, always make them get their policy out. And if you guys absolutely cannot find it, figure out what insurance carrier they're through. So say they don't know, let's pull up your bank statement and look at it, see what carrier you're through, and then call the insurance company, and then you can get detailed information on exactly what they have. And I just tell people, hey, this is just how I have to do it to be, compliant with everything. I just need to know exactly which coverage you have already, just to make sure we're doing everything the correct way. And then after the current insurance, is kind of where you go into quoting the client. If you're brand new and you don't know exactly what to do yet, once you get through here, call after you get through here, right? Like don't call. And for me as a manager, the most irritating thing is when I get someone that calls and they're like, hey, I'm gonna sit with Bob. What should I write him? And I'm like, okay, how old is Bob? Hey, Bob, how old are you? Right? Hey, what is Bob on any medications? Hey, Bob, you on a medication? So don't do that because you'll annoy your manager, right? And it'll be unproductive and you'll look unprofessional. So go through the full inventory sheet. It's not difficult. It's just a lot of questions that are set up to make the appointment flow correctly for you. Once you get through all that stuff, either say you don't know what to write, call, and someone will give you a direction on what to write. If you do know where to go with, say you're going to go with Eagle Premier because they're healthy enough with Americo for a final expense appointment. Something that I always recommend, and something I did not do early on with final expense, but I definitely do now, is always start from the top and then work your way down. So, okay, got it. Based on everything you told me today, it looks like you need somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000 of insurance, right? Yep, something like that. Okay, cool. And then what I'll do is write on the back, $30,000, and then below that I'll write $60,000 because Eagle Premier doubles in the event of an accident, and then below that I'll write $90,000 because it triples if it's a common carrier. And then I'll write 25,000, do the same thing, 25, 50, 75, and then do the same thing for 20,000, right? And then I'll turn the sheet over to them, pass it their way, and say, hey, which one of these makes the most financial sense for you guys? Okay. And like I said, I always start at the top. So I sit there and I'm quiet. If their eyes are wide open, like, oh my gosh, I can't afford that, then then I'll know that we might have to drop the premium down a little bit. But I'll just sit there and I'm quiet until they answer. Once they tell me, hey, this one works, or oh my gosh, we got to think about it, I'll say, okay, most people that tell me that just, it's a little bit outside their budget. I mean, are any of these affordable for you, or is it just a little bit too much? And if it's too much, I'm like, okay, cool. Let's look at, and I know this was very important to you based on everything you told me during our appointment. So let's look at, 15,000 and 10,000 too. And then you can tell me which one of those works for you. Okay. So I'm willing to work down, but I always start from the very top. and just to give people the opportunity to get as much insurance as they could possibly get. So just to recap, make sure that you go through the thorough financial inventory sheet. Make sure you get everything that you need from it. Make sure that you're spending time asking people what their income is going to look like, and asking what it's going to look like if one spouse passes away, because that'll build a ton of value in your appointments. And then real quick, I kind of wanted to give everyone a little bit of what I do intro-wise before the financial inventory sheet. So before I even get started into this, as soon as I sit down with the client, I'll just say, hey, let's say it's a final expense appointment, right? Hey guys, I assume you filled this out. You just need some sort of final expense coverage. Make sure, you die, that stuff's covered. Is that correct? And they'll be like, yep, that's correct. Okay, cool. So how this works is I'm a broker. I work with a whole bunch of different insurance carriers. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through a client worksheet, client suitability worksheet. And what that's going to allow me to do is ask you some questions about your health and financials and that sort of thing, so I can figure out what the best fit for you would be. So it's going to allow me to shop around for you, and make sure that we get you with the carrier that would make the most sense for you and your family. And then what we're going to do is, like I said, ask you a few questions. When we get to the very end, I'm going to kind of figure out what would make sense, which company would make sense. You're going to pick out one of the plans that we decide to look into today, and then we're going to do an application at the end. And the reason I like to do that is to give people a clear, short-term goals and structure, so that you don't get through the inventory sheet and quote them, and then they say, hey, thank you, Zach, for the information. Because I hate that. So what they're going to say instead is, okay, got it. Now I got to pick one of these out because I know I have to do that. And then after that, we're going to do the application. So they're not surprised at all. So I think, kind of giving people proper expectations along with using a financial inventory sheet will make the appointments go smoothly. It'll also make it to where if you guys go down some rabbit hole about their grandkids, you can point back to the sheet and say, hey, I'm sorry, Mary, I need to get back on track here. Anyways, you were saying, what was your mortgage balance? I mean, you can kind of blame it on the sheet. You don't have to be rude or anything like that. And I think that when I started using this properly, it added a ton of sales to what I was doing. And I still use it in every single appointment. I don't ever just write it on the back of a lead or anything like that, because I always want to be, as professional for my clients as I could possibly be. So anyways, y'all, hopefully this helps. If you have any additional questions, as always, feel free to reach out to me, and I would definitely do my best to help. Thank you guys for tuning on. Bye.